we are ready to reinstall these motor controllers for like the 20th time. A couple of weeks ago, I did a test fit for these to make sure we knew where we were going to put them. And since the space back here is so tight, we figured out a cool design idea, which was to actually offset the motor controller from the bulkhead a little bit so that all of the cables and plumbing and stuff from the top motor controller can actually run behind the bottom one. So we kind of get twice as much real estate in the same amount of space. So I welded up some brackets and mounted them to the wall already, and then mounted these motor controller brackets to those brackets. So it's also been very easy to pop these on and off as we've needed to modify and adjust things. Also designed and printed these little boxes for what we're calling the service switches, because we're planning to basically always run these two motors at the same time. We don't really foresee a reason why we'd ever need to completely shut off and isolate one system over the other. However, there are still some troubleshooting and some service reasons why you want to be able to control the servo prop box and the motor controller box and isolate each individually. So we wired the factory switches into this little box for service reasons so that if we ever need to run those troubleshooting scenarios, we can, although it's incredibly unlikely, but it's good to have them just in case. So Derek just left and we stripped out all of the nice work he did while he was here to bench test everything and to make sure it was going to work. Now we've cleaned up the battery cables, took these motor controllers back out and installed these little brass nipples on the bottom, which is where the coolant is going to flow through the back of the motor controllers. And now we can reinstall these motor controllers, hopefully for the last time, and start wiring them up and plumbing them up. And yes, even though they are electric motors, they're still a liquid circuit, which is to cool these. Although everybody involved with this project understands that cooling these motor controllers is probably overkill for our needs since we're running them at such a low capacity for what they're rated for. However, we're sort of future-proofing this build by plumbing in the cooling circuit now, even though the reality is we're probably never going to use it. It's easier to do it now with that option in the future than it is going to be to plumb it all in the future. So we've got two of these big giant cooling fins that need to get installed on the outside of the boat, and then the cooling loops can plumb into those. So we're going to start by putting these motor controllers back in and then drill some holes through some bulkheads and run some hoses. All right. Cool part is they put these little extra bolts on the side so that you can just go ka-chunk and then it holds itself in place sort of while you put the real bolts in. I ran my own cabling for these. It's so pretty. Okay. I'm done patting myself on the back. I know how the phase cables are getting run from the controllers to the motors. And I know that we have what we need to build the power cables to go in. That's just like fiddly work. I think the next thing we should do is plumbing, because it's kind of, there's still some question marks in that system, including the fact that it's raining outside. So we don't really want to like Sika those fins to the hull if they're wet. But yeah, I think figuring out exactly where the plumbing lines are going to be run is next. We were originally going to be putting these cooling fins in the cockpit locker because they are technically hull perforations. Even though they're going to be like bolted through and sealed, technically they're hull perforations. So we were going to put them in the cockpit lockers because that's watertight. However, it's just like more stuff in the cockpit lockers, and we're trying to eliminate as many systems out of the cockpit lockers as we can. And we do have dead space in our ocean bolt compartments, which are also watertight. So although the install is going to be a little bit trickier, I think we're going to opt to put these in the actual ocean bolt compartments and the water pump in there as well. These are just a big empty like void. Water gets plumbed in there and gets sucked out here. So it's just kind of cycling through here. So it's not like it's pulling in any raw water from the ocean. It's just using this as a big heat sink down in the ocean. So yeah, I think they're going to go in those compartments.
Did we have this before?
It wasn't quite this big. They've modified. I have the other fin somewhere.
I just don't remember that we had that before.
It was almost this big, but it just had like a single. They had before was maybe a slightly cleaner design. I don't have the actual thing anymore. I think it's downstairs. But what it did was it pumped water down through here and then sucked it out through there. So it was like kind of cleaner. It was like one hull perforation instead of two. But it was a pain in the ass to get this to seal on top of that. So it always leaked a little bit. And also this has a massive amount more cooling potential. So for people who actually are running their motors at or near full power a lot of the time, so like people have hybrid systems, this is a requirement. We don't have a hybrid system. These motors are 3x larger than they need to be for our boat. And during regen, we're not going to need to cool the motor controller. But again, we're kind of future-proofing our boat in case someday we have the ability to motor more than 5 hours at full speed.
Just a bit of a...
You're so tall.
I know. Sometimes I have to perch myself in interesting positions in order to get the right shot. But the entire time that Dan was talking earlier to me, and I was kind of like planning the video and everything, and he was talking about those cooling fins. And I thought they were cooling fans. Because I was like, wait, how is it? Because like it's a fan, right? Because it cools. Fans cool. And I thought, how is it going to...
You're like, where's the propeller?
Cool it. Yeah. So, but now I know they're not cooling fans. They're cooling fins.
How were you
Fun
saying
fact.
that before? I was saying cooling fins.
Fin. Fan. I was saying fan because I thought it was a fan.
You were saying cooling fans.
Cooling fans.
Fans. Like F-A-I-N.
Because I wasn't quite sure which one, so I was putting both letters. Cooling fans. All right.
We're all on the same page now.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, we need to figure out a symmetrical way of mounting this. Can you pass me that little drill too? I also need to figure out where I'm even allowed to drill this. I mean, I kind of
But the pallet hole can be at an angle.
Yeah, it's also true. It could be at an angle
because it's just a pallet hole. So the whole
because the whole saw
is
is going to be bigger.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger. All the numbers lined up. It's like 30 up. So it's kind of crazy. Like I measured the ocean bolt beds aren't actually centered on the hull. They're centered in the space so that we can flip them 180 someday. But I measured like parallel up from the side of the flange, and it was exactly 17 centimeters from like the bulkhead to the flange. Mm-hmm. And then it's exactly 34 centimeters from the back of the flange to the front of the flange. So that's 17 times 2. So like it's like 17 from the bulkhead to the back of the flange, 17 from the back of the flange to the center. And then this this cooling fin is also 17 from center to center. So it's kind of cool that like, I don't know, when measurements line up, it just feels like the universe telling me we're on the right track.
That's good.
Yeah, okay. Now is the fun part of drilling more holes in our hull. Now we know where to drill them at least. Let's go, baby. Oh, there's water coming in.
I hope not.
Yeah. Ow, my wrist. Hopefully that's big enough. Yes, queen. Cool. All right. It look a little weird because it's like parallel to the motor, not parallel to the... Could change that by a little bit. I think I'm going to actually. Yeah. Dear Internet, if any of you guys have helpful tips and tricks on how to remove the core from a hole saw, I'm all ears. And I know you can like drill halfway through and drill out to the other side. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking for like
Quick tip.
I can't get the drill in from the other side, so there's no way of doing that. So my solution is to take it to the vise and smash it with a screwdriver. But that means that it takes 5 minutes to drill a hole that should take 2 seconds.
To the vise. Back to the boat.
To the vise!
To the vise.
Back to the boat. To the vise. Back to the boat.
All right, so because it's actively raining and we don't want to get anything wet, we've taped off the hull in our fancy little manner to make rain gutters around what we're doing. And now we're gonna seal up the outside of this with just like a ton of sealant and then carry it outside like upside down so it doesn't get wet. Then Kika's gonna like squish it up from the outside. I'm gonna go inside and put the nuts on from the inside. These are just Vetus cooling fins. And I'm pretty sure they're designed to sit on the hull like that so that there's like water flow on top. But that to me just looks like a nightmare to put anti-foul up underneath here, which means that this is always going to get full of barnacles anyway. So we may as well just seal it with Sikaflex now and then not have to worry about it. That's my theory. Oh! All right, so just kind of like hold it like that and then let me do the squeezing from inside. It's kind of heavy. You ready? All right. All right, I have the weight. Do you want to start pushing a little bit?
Squish, squish, squish.
Cool. Sweet. So this is the coolant pump that circulates the coolant from the motor controller down to those fins that we just installed. Last time we installed it, it's the same cooling pump, but we just kind of used like the hoses that it was connected to hold it up because it doesn't really weigh anything. But this time around, we have these sweet little clips that we're going to be using to hold all of our 1.5-inch bilge hose and the 1.5-inch hose for our holding tank. And they just so happen to fit perfectly. So we're going to use those to hold this pump as well. Just so happens that this pump is exactly the same diameter as 1.5-inch plumbing hose. So it's absolutely perfect. So these little clips, they come with like a mounting bracket, and then they sort of clip onto that. So we can screw that onto the wall, and then we can just snap the pump into it. And then the pumps can be mounted to the bulkhead. Makes me very happy. All right, let's do that. Yeah, totally. Beautiful. I'm happy with that. Water's gonna come down, pump this way, go into there, come out there, come around to there, go back up. Okay, let's go out the other one. This is so good. All right.
Lightheaded?
It's late now. We can connect all that nonsense with some hoses. And since our design has changed about 17 times since I ordered that hose, I hope we have enough.
I hope you have enough.
One way to find out. All right. Yeah, I guess we'll start by plumbing in here and then end by plumbing out here. See how it goes. How's that gonna work for you? Well, 75 years ago, back when I was a boy, we built this throttle pod in our Dodger. Knowing one day we would eventually be installing our motor throttles, and today's that day. So last night I put a piece of conduit along here and down into where all of our wires are going to be. These throttles run on like NEMA cable, only it's not part of the NEMA network. It's on like the VE CAN bus network, but same cable. So we need to pull two of those cables up through to here and then bolt that on for hopefully the last time.
Stuck. It's stuck. Oh, I think it's through. Yeah. That's it.
All right, perfect. All right, guys, we spent the last few days reinstalling the motor controllers and hooking up the cooling system and plumbing that all the way through to each individual motor compartment. And we've got the cooling fins installed. We did at least a test run of the top motor controller with coolant in it. We use the siphon to fill up the tank because it's like a little close to the hull, but it works. And we need to wait on one more piece of hose before we can install the cooling on the bottom system. However, spent the last day or so cleaning up all the wiring in here, built new power cables, so that's all nice and cleaned up, installed the phase cables so the motors are all wired. We were actually able to get the motors powered up earlier and our Victron Servo VRM system online so that the guys from Ocean Volt in Finland could actually access our system remotely, because our old motor and our old controller were still looking for our old battery bank, which was wired completely differently. So they were able to remotely update our old system so that it should match the new system now. And I think we're ready to do like a proper test. I think both motors should spin now. I think everything should be operational. We still have some more cleanup to do in here, but I think we can turn everything on, and I think both props will spin. So I think we should give that a try. So when Derek was here last week, we were able to get each motor on individually, but we were borrowing components from one to make the other one work. But we've gotten all of that sorted out, and we should now have like state of charge, and the screen should be updated, and they should both work together. And then all we have to do is just finish cleaning up the wiring, and we'll be good to go. We'll have like 2 working motors. And now that our throttles are finally installed, we can go out and test those too. Even though it's dark, hopefully we'll be able to see something. I think they have lights in them. They have lights in them. Yeah, because they're like our old throttle. Oh, that's going to be cool. I'm excited to see how that looks at night with the lights on. All right, so because we don't have our main switches installed yet, we're still using the service switches. So we can turn these on, turn that on, turn this on, turn that on. They're homing little props, checking where they are. And they go and check their like pitch to make sure they're right. The screen should turn on, and the throttle should turn on. And these should both be blinking yellow. And those shouldn't be blinking at all. So far, so good. All right, should we go try them? This is going to be the coolest monohull to drive ever. It's going to be so awesome to stand here and be able to just like have complete control over the entire boat. It's been a long time in the making getting this system up and running, but I'm pretty happy with it. This throttle pod's awesome. I'm really excited to drive the boat in the future and dock without stress and regen at a ridiculous amount while we're offshore sailing. There is still quite a bit of work to do to get the system like finished, but we're waiting on little bits and pieces in the mail. So we're not going to be able to finish that yet, including waterproofing the actual Ocean Volt compartments. Where the cables go through right now isn't waterproof. Where the cooling circuit goes through is, and then we're going to build like a waterproof lid to go on top of it as well. But that'll have to wait for now. For now, the motors spin and it's hooked up, and this project's pretty much good to go until we get in the water. So that's exciting. Now that the 48-volt battery banks are both wired up and that side of the link system is done, and our biggest electrical draw being our motors is up and running, I think the next thing we're going to be installing is finishing our 12-volt system so we can get the rest of the house loads up and running. But that'll be pretty much it for this one. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.